And we're back. This is Hook and Ladder, week 12. This season's rapidly coming to a close, and it's a sad thing.
Yeah, kind of bummed. We only got one more week of the regular season left, and then championship, conference championship Saturday, and then the playoffs and bowl season is one of my favorite times of the year. Anyway, you just get all these great games, all the what do you call it? Like the like the bowls right around Christmas time. Those are always the best ones.
Well, it's like the end of the beginning.
Yeah, right.
Say. Well, let's get started. Georgia knocked off Tennessee 38-10 in dominant fashion. Carson Beck looked awesome.
Basically, 4 out of the, I would say 3 out of the last 4 games, Georgia has really looked like the number 1 team in the country. I mean, the Missouri game was a hard-fought game. Georgia didn't play their best game, but they beat a tough-ranked opponent at home. Right. Then you get a top 10 matchup at home. Georgia with Ole Miss, Georgia blows the doors off them. This game was the game I thought they'd get tripped up. At Tennessee, everybody knows Neyland Stadium was crazy loud. I don't want to say it's a tough place to play. I hate when people say that. It's loud, so that makes it difficult. But if you kind of look at the last few years, Tennessee really hasn't been crazy dominant at home. I know last season they were great. They had some issues this year. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it didn't seem that hard a place to play for Georgia yesterday. 75-yard touchdown on the first play of the game. I think that is the 7th time this season Georgia has let the opposing team score a touchdown in their opening possession, and after that it was goodnight Irene.
Yes.
Completely just shut down Tennessee. And one thing I'll say about this game, so last year Tennessee was the number 1 ranked team in the country. They come in and Georgia beats them pretty convincingly. The score wasn't a massive blowout, but when you kind of look at the game as a whole, Tennessee had no chance in it. It started raining. Georgia just ran the football. But they needed to blitz to make it a difference, get pressure on the quarterback, make a difference, blitz a lot. Yesterday, they did it. They were rushing 3, maybe 4 guys, dropping dudes into coverage, and we were watching the game. I kept thinking when it's 3rd down and 6, 7, 8, 9 yards, Milton can't make the throw. He's not accurate. He's got a cannon for an arm, throws a beautiful deep ball, but he's inaccurate. There were 3 different times in this game Milton had dudes wide open deep. They beat the Georgia DBs. They had plenty of separation, and he couldn't hit him. It was overthrow. And against Georgia, you got to make those plays. Correct. And he couldn't do it. And I think Georgia knew that. Ladd McConkey wasn't 100%. They didn't need to play him. Tate Rattlers just got a little bit of a bruise on his knee. Could have come back in. Didn't need him. I think Georgia knew they had him. And it was just snowball from there. Just a huge dominating performance by the Dogs in Neyland. Very impressive game. Number 1 team in the country.
Deservedly so.
Yeah, and deservedly so. And they showed what they're capable of.
Ohio State knocked off Minnesota 37-3. I didn't see any of this one.
I watched a little bit of this this morning. Harrison had a good game. I think they're going to get going and they're going to be a lot better. I predict them to beat Michigan for number 1 reason being Travion Henderson is back and healthy. He's running like he's capable of running. He looks like the guy that the highly touted recruit that they got coming out of high school. He gives them a different dimension to the offense, in my opinion. Kyle McCord has been up and down, 212 yards this game. Nothing crazy. Didn't need to be. They were running the ball well. I mean, they played Minnesota. They beat the hell out of Minnesota. This is what you want to see the number 2 team in the country do to a lesser opponent. But Harrison Jr. had another 100-yard game and another touchdown. I think this is his 9th, 7th, 8th, 9th game in a row scoring a touchdown. They're getting hot, just like Alabama is, at the right time. And, they look good. And this next team we're going to talk about kind of didn't look very impressive to me.
Michigan knocked off Maryland 31-24. Maryland had a shot to beat them a couple times in this game. They just didn't capitalize.
And, some of the touchdown passes Maryland threw were great plays by the receiver and the quarterback, Tunga Viola. Those are going to be touchdown passes against pretty much any DB. But what concerned me about this game, the score kind of got a little bit. That was never really in hand, in my opinion, for Michigan. I mean, there was definitely a spot in this game I was like, Michigan might lose this game. Going down, stopping them down there inside the 20, Michigan did. But Blake Corum was getting hit, and he wasn't falling forward and pushing the pile like we're used to seeing from Michigan. He was getting hit in the hole, and stood up. Donovan Edwards looked pretty good, but they weren't dominating on the line of scrimmage like I'm used to Michigan doing. And for the second straight week watching Michigan, they can't really throw the football. The tight end's pretty good, number 18. Roman Wilson went out, looked like he had a concussion. He was in street clothes in the second half of the game. Who knows what's going to happen next week? He's their main receiving threat with probably Donovan Edwards. And I'm wondering if they go up against Ohio State, or if they beat Ohio State and they make the playoffs, and a team can stop them running the football, do they have the ability to win the game throwing? Now, J.J. McCarthy is a great quarterback. He's got a great arm. He can run the football. But do they have the receivers capable of these top-flight elite teams? They got these DBs. I don't really know too much about Texas. I haven't watched a lot of Texas this year, but I'm thinking mainly the elite DBs of Georgia and Alabama. Can they beat those guys? I don't think they can. But, they're number 3. They got to play Ohio State. We'll see what they do against Ohio State. That'll kind of be, I'll be watching that next week at
without
noon.
Jim Harbaugh.
Yes, without Harbaugh, which I really don't think makes a huge difference, to be honest with you. I think that the other guy, I forgot his name, he's got some more balls, calling some fourth down calls, going for the jugular. I like that. It worked yesterday. We'll see if he keeps doing it and it keeps working. But I want to see what they do against Ohio State, because Ohio State's defense is just like theirs, just like Penn State. It's an elite level defense.
Yeah. Well, moving right along, Florida State knocked off North Alabama 58-13, but that's not really the story. Jordan Travis is done.
Yes, and that was an ugly injury. And, they wouldn't show the replay, but yet they kept showing the replay every time. I felt bad for the kid. You could tell he was in pain. You could tell he knew right away it was done. The entire team on a knee. Some guys were crying. The coaches were stunned. The opposing team, North Alabama, they were out there with them. You don't want to see that. No. You don't want to see that for anybody, let alone the quarterback, Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback of the number 4 team in the country. They were down 13-0 when that happened. And I got to give Florida State credit. They scored 58 unanswered points. They came in, Tate Rudemaker, whatever his name is, came in, played pretty well for over 2 bills, I think 3 touchdowns. Keon Coleman had a touchdown. They ran the football fairly well when they needed to, and they clamped down and won the game. They played and beat a team like North Alabama the way the number 4 team in the country is supposed to do.
Correct.
I don't think that's really going to change things. They're probably still going to win the ACC. I don't really see anybody. I mean, Louisville is a good football team. They beat Miami yesterday, and we'll get to that game in a minute. I don't see anybody that's going to take them in the ACC. Now, without Jordan Travis, they've got a month or so to practice, but without him, are they going to do anything in the playoffs? I don't know. That's going to be a tough road to hoe. Because Jordan Travis is an elite quarterback.
That's right. There's 2 more games left. So.
Yeah, you just hate to see that. I feel for the kid, and he's a senior on senior night. I don't sit right with me that something like that could happen.
No, it's football. Washington knocked off Oregon State 22-20. This game was in doubt the entire game.
It was ugly game. I enjoyed watching it. It was raining at some points. It looked like it was snowing, possibly maybe freezing rain. It looked just miserable conditions to play football in. Cold. Oregon State ran the football really well. I enjoyed watching Martinez run. I don't know what the final tally he had. He had to have well over 100 yards rushing. But when they needed to stop him, Washington did that. DJ went out for a series or 2, I think with an injury, only threw for 164, nothing special. He didn't look great. He looked really inaccurate, and that hurt him. There were open guys on drives that he couldn't hit. And this game was, this was never in hand for either team.
Right.
Oregon State had an opportunity to win this, and I thought DJ, inaccurate throws cost him the football game in the long run. Washington didn't look all that great, in my opinion. Yeah. Wide receiver, Dunze, I think is his name. I probably pronounced it wrong. Looks good, elite level wide receiver. Penix looks good at times. I just didn't see, and then the defense for both teams looked really good at times. Just one of those games, just hard fought game. Who knows what the outcome would have been if it was like 75 degrees and sunny. Yeah. But this was a brutally ugly game in terrible conditions. I enjoyed the hell out of watching it, to be honest with you. I just think Washington's primed to get beat. I mean, they're playing with fire the last 5 or 6 weeks.
No, they're dying on the vine right now. They're kind of wilting right now.
And then the team we're going to talk about next, Oregon, beat the shit out of Arizona State 49-13. Bo Nix goes for over 4 bills and 6 TDs. I think that was all in the first half.
He went off.
They lost to Washington, and I feel that loss early in the year was solely on Dan Lanning, not taking points and ended up losing by 3. I thought Oregon at the time was a better team, even though they lost. I think they're a better team now. I think they play in the Pac-12 championship game. Oregon's going to beat them.
I agree. I'm completely with you, and how things shake out going forward.
Who would have thought, watching Bo Nix, all those games we did when he played at Auburn, that he was going to turn into this version of himself?
Well, he's been playing. He started 5 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, he always had talent. He had a good arm. He could run around. It was the decision-making process for him that always screwed him. And then the fact that he thought no matter what happened, he could make a play, which kind of goes into the decision-making process. Sometimes just throw the damn ball away, take the 5-yard run. He'd try to run around, make a play, throw a pick, take a bad sack, fumble, 20 yards behind the line. Yeah. And then you saw, him when that worked, that fantastic play he did a couple years ago against LSU. But I never thought he'd turn into this version of himself. I mean, he's an absolute phenomenal quarterback.
Well, another team that's still alive, Texas took on Iowa State, and they knocked them off 26-16. You see any of this one?
Yeah, I watched this last night, flipping back and forth between this game and the Oregon State-Washington game and the Florida-Missouri game, which is fun. This game was a little bit tighter than the score would indicate. Texas obviously won by 10, but this was a little bit tighter. Kind of was a battle through the third quarter. Texas started to kind of get in hand, and then Iowa State scored a couple touchdowns late to make it a little bit better, but they were fighting the whole game. They just don't have... I mean, they've always got great tight ends. They got solid quarterback play. The defense is all right. If they could get some solid guys out wide, maybe a better running back, they could do some damage. I thought they fought them hard. Texas, to me, looks like they kind of peaked early in the season with the Alabama win, and they've been struggling ever since. They've got talented guys. I think they should be winning by more than they are. We'll see what happens. They're in firm control. Who they play is going to be, it's like, I watched the highlights today, it was this crazy mathematical equation, like, if this happens and this happens, this team is in. If this happens and this happens, this team is in. I think no matter who they play, they're going to win.
Right.
I just don't see them make it out of the semis. I really don't. They're going to have to play Michigan, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama. I don't know. I mean, Alabama's probably not getting in unless they beat Georgia.
I thought they're going to be the first team outside looking in at the moment. You got to have Florida State. Going to have to help them out, and you're going to one of the Ohio State, Michigan going to get out of the game.
Well, see, they're at 7.
Yeah.
5 or 6 going to lose, and then obviously Michigan, Ohio State's going to lose. I honestly don't think if Texas wins out, and one of those 2 Pac-12 teams, or whether Oregon wins out with just one loss or Washington wins out and wins the conference, I think the loser of that Michigan-Ohio State game, because it's a regular season game, is
eliminated. Out. Absolutely.
They're going to put in a one-loss conference champ, or which would be the case of Oregon or possibly Alabama. Yeah. Alabama beats Georgia; they're a one-loss conference champ, and they're in. And Georgia might be sitting outside.
That's right.
On the outside looking in. Still got a lot of football to play left to get to that kind of question.
But I just got a feeling that a lot of these teams that are undefeated are not going to be undefeated.
Yeah, and some of them, like we've been talking about, Washington and Texas, they look good, but you kind of can see where they're playing with fire. Yeah. They're not playing up to their level of ability. Where teams like Ohio State, Michigan, Florida, Michigan didn't have a good game yesterday, but they've been playing well. Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Florida State, they've been playing well enough where I'm thinking Washington and Texas are struggling.
Well, speaking of teams that are playing very well right now, Alabama knocked off Chattanooga 66-10. Jalen Milroe's looking really good.
He is, and somebody said the other day online that America let the wrong team, the wrong coach, and the wrong roster get hot. Alabama had the struggles early in the year. Looks like they figured them out.
Yep.
I still think that they've got a few holes on the team. But if you look at the top-rated recruiting classes in the history of them ranking classes, 3 out of the 4 best classes ever are currently on the Alabama roster. They're loaded. They had to figure some things out early. They got pinched because they played early in the season against Texas, and Texas took them down. They play that game again today, and I don't think Texas is taking them down. The defense is ridiculously good. The offensive line isn't great. I don't think their running backs are the elite running backs. Derrick Henry, Bo Scarborough, Najee Harris, Mark Ingram, the other guy, I forget his name, that was just a bust in the NFL. Trent Richardson. Those guys aren't walking through the door. They've got good, serviceable backs. They're good enough to win a title with, but they're not the elite level backs, in my opinion. No. But they don't need them right now. Right. The way Milroe's running the football, they don't need it. And they've really never had that before under Nick Saban. They've never had crazy threat run the football. Maybe the hell's the kid's name? I'm drawing a blank. Bryce Young. He was a threat running, but they didn't really use him too much. He could scramble. Tua scrambled when needed, but wasn't much. Mac Jones was a statue in the pocket. And they won Heismans. They won Natties with those guys. This way it might be a little bit different. They're my pick to win the national championship right now. I don't think anybody has beaten them.
We'll see.
Defense is too good. Yeah. You can maybe stuff their offense and kind of hold them in check with teams like Michigan, Georgia, Ohio State defensively, Florida State maybe. But you can't score that much on this defense, I don't think.
Right. Moving right along, Missouri knocked off Florida in a nail-biter, 33-31. You see any of this one?
Ridiculously entertaining game. I thought Florida was done and out. They came to play last night. And they needed to win last night and then beat Florida State just to make bowl eligible, right? Ricky Parasol scores a touchdown on a really nice reverse play. I didn't know he was a transfer in a couple years ago. He transferred in. Anyway, they were talking about him with being bowl eligible, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm a senior." He's like, "This is the last football I've got," and he made a great point. He's like, "You need the bowl practices to get the young guys more reps, get them ready. It's instrumental to the next season," which he's completely right. I completely agree with him. But his attitude of like, "I want as much football as I can play. This is my last year at Florida," and he's probably not going to get it. They're probably done after next Saturday. He's not going to get those extra practices. He's not going to get that extra game. But they came to play. They looked really, really good offensively and defensively. Corey Schrader had a great game, like he's gonna. Brady Cook looked good, but they couldn't put the game away when they had opportunities. The defense, which is a big surprise, Missouri's got a really good defense, and they just kept letting Florida go up and down the field on them. And I thought it was in hand. And then it was 4th and 17 from Missouri. 4th and 17, they let Trey Burton get down there and catch a 19-yard pass for first. Then they get, make another couple passes. They get down, they kick the game-winning field goal. Crazy entertaining game. As much as I dislike Florida, and I really like watching Mizzou this year, I kind of felt bad for them. I mean, they played well enough to deserve to win that football game. Graham Mertz goes down with a collarbone injury. The backup QB comes in. Looks like Johnny Manziel running the football. I don't know. They deserved to win. I felt bad for him, but it was a great game.
Louisville knocked off Miami 38-31.
Closer than I thought it was going to be. Miami, the last 2 weeks, they've come to play. Unranked Miami. I've said it before, they're just buying guys, and those guys are buying with NIL. It's legal. So can't say anything bad about it, but they're buying dudes. Those dudes they're buying are paying dividends. I just don't think they're all that good. They need a QB. Don't know who the QB that they just bought recently. Did they buy one? I don't know. I know they got a really, really good wide receiver coming in, but they're not a good football team, and I don't mind seeing them lose. I think they don't have the fans. The stadium's freaking empty. And when your team like A&M and Miami is buying dudes, I don't have a problem when you get beat.
Penn State knocked off Rutgers 27-6. Rutgers played well last week, but of course this week they just decided to...
Penn State, again, we talked about it, 10-2 ceiling. Nothing to be ashamed of. They're going to have a great season. Eventually, their boosters are going to get tired of losing to the big guys. And
they're going to make it a drastic
And they're
move.
going to make a change eventually. I'm wondering how many years it's going to take. You can go 10-2 and make a lot of people happy for a good while. But they start losing another game or two, and it could get ugly for James Franklin.
Ole Miss knocked off Louisiana Monroe 35-3.
Yeah, this was basically cupcake week in the SEC, with the exception of 3 games: the Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, Missouri, and Kentucky, South Carolina. Those were the only 6 teams, I believe, that played actual opponents. And one of the cupcakes won last night.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that one.
Oklahoma knocked off BYU 31-24.
Didn't see any of this game, a little bit closer than I expected.
Yes, of course it was. LSU knocked off Georgia State 56-14. Jaden Daniels went off, as usual. 400
yards passing, almost 100 rushing. He'll probably win the Heisman. My opinion, one of the weaker Heisman fields in recent memory. Nothing against this kid. He puts up the numbers. He's phenomenal, but like none of the guys kind of stand out to me the way Caleb Williams did last year.
There's no separation. There's guys who've had and he's had a great season. Bo Nix had a great season. But
there are guys I think that are just better overall football players.
Yes.
Brock Bowers, him missing a few games, 2.5 games. Marvin Harrison should win, in my opinion. He's not only the best player, he's got the stats.
Right.
But this is a quarterback award now.
Right.
You know, I mean, if you're a wideout, you got to have ridiculously numbers, like ridiculous. If you're a running back, you got to have like 1,500 yards and like 20 touchdowns. Yeah. It's a quarterback. It's just a stupid award now, but he's going to win it.
Yeah. Iowa knocked off Illinois 15-13.
Boring. They're going to go to the Big Ten championship and get absolutely smoked because they're not going to be able to score on either Michigan or Ohio State.
And next year they're going to go. The best two teams are going to play the championship.
Yeah, and that's what it should be because this is stupid.
Yeah. Utah lost to Arizona 42-14. The wheels are kind of starting to fall off.
Yeah, they've got I think they got 8 starters on offense and 6 on defense out. Mm-hmm. Eventually that catches up. It's hard to win when you've got that many of your starters out.
Right.
Arizona's a hot team, though. Yep. Give them credit. They've been looking good the last few weeks.
Yeah. I mean, the Pac-12 has really just been cannibalizing.
It is. It is deep. Yeah. And like you said, cannibalize is an excellent word for it.
Maybe the best conference in college football right now.
Yes, I completely agree.
Okay. Clemson knocked off UNC. Definitely an upset, 31-20.
UNC just does this to me every year. Like 4 years ago, I was like all on the North Carolina train, and every year they lose a couple of games, you're disappointed, and they lose like another one, you're just like, good Lord.
They've got guys.
They do.
They've got guys. They got arguably the best quarterback in the country, and they come and lay an egg against an inferior. Well, I guess Clemson's not an inferior opponent, but
they should be. I mean, they still have a lot of holes on that team. Mm-hmm. They're not. The recruiting hasn't been up to par what it should be, but the guys that they've got are stepping up at the right time.
Right. Kansas versus Kansas State. Kansas State knocked off Kansas 31-27.
Great game. I watched a little bit of this. That was back and forth. I expected Kansas State to really take it to them. Mm-hmm. It was a hard-fought game. I enjoyed watching it. Both teams played really, really hard. It's kind of sad seeing one of them have to lose. I enjoyed watching this one.
I would like to go to one of these rivalry games.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be fun as hell.
Cool. You know, back when we used to actually go travel and see football games.
It's my fault. Now I have a family and I can't travel anymore.
Yeah. Oklahoma State knocked off Houston 43-30.
Kind of a surprising score. I didn't really watch much of this game. I thought Oklahoma State would take care of business a little bit better. Give credit to Houston. I know that their coach is on the hot seat, and I think he even mentioned that like he needs to be let go or something like that. But I felt bad. I enjoyed watching Houston play the last few years. And Oklahoma State, you know, they're just like North Carolina. They show promise. They lose a couple games. You forget about them. All of a sudden they get hot, win 5 games in a row, win Bedlam, and then they shit the bed a week later, and you're just like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah. So where's that game at that we said we were going to mention earlier?
Auburn.
Yes. Where's that? Auburn. Auburn lost to New Mexico State 31-10.
They got beat at home by 21. That's bad. I mean, that's really bad. Somebody said that they got paid $5 million. They didn't. They got paid $1.5 million. Still, you were paid $1.5 million to come into Jordan-Hare and smoke Auburn by 21.
Well, this happened back in 2007 when Louisiana Monroe came to Alabama and they knocked off Alabama, and then Nick Saban's been on the wharf back there.
Yeah, but I don't think they beat Alabama by 21.
It wasn't 21.
But this was a freaking whooping.
This is Hugh Freeze year 1 installing this system. They're overlooking this team because they got Bama next week.
You're right. And it's a shocker because Auburn's been playing pretty good as of late. Mm-hmm. They finally figured out that Peyton Thorne was the guy. Yeah. They've been using him a little bit more in the run game. I thought he looked good against Georgia. When he threw the football, I was excited because I was kind of afraid of him running the football.
Right.
He's looked good the last couple games, looked really good against Arkansas. Mm-hmm. I was really shocked at this outcome. Really shocked at this outcome. Because, Hugh Freeze's first year, they don't have the dudes, but they're not this bad.
Right.
And I want to give a shout out to South Carolina for taking down Kentucky. This is just a bad year for Kentucky. Nobody saw this coming. Mm-hmm. I don't think. Devin Leary just hasn't been the guy. They've lost too many players. They got a good running back. They got decent defensive front, decent offensive front. They're lacking guys defensively in the back half, and they're lacking skill guys at the tight end and the wide receiver position. Mm-hmm. But they play hard. Yeah. But it's just been really disappointing. South Carolina needed to win that game and beat Clemson to be bowl eligible. I don't think it's going to happen, but kudos to them. Lovett looked great. Mm-hmm. Caught 2 TD passes. Rattler looked pretty good. And they've been without one of their best wideouts pretty much the whole season. I think he maybe came back and said, I didn't really see. I don't think he did much yesterday if he came back. But having him out, I think that's hurt them offensively. They're one of those teams that just kind of lost some key guys to the portal in graduation, and they haven't really recruited well enough. But I do like Shane Beamer. I think if he can get some guys on defense, they'll be all right.
Well, let's move on to next week's games.
Last week of the regular season. Rivalry week for the most part.
Yeah. Got teams like USC's already done. They've already played their 12.
Played week 0, so they're done. Yeah. They've lost, 4 in a row, 5 in a row?
We'll start Thursday night. Turkey Day, Ole Miss, Mississippi State.
Thanksgiving night. One of my most favorite traditions of my entire life is you go out with your families, you get the big Thanksgiving dinner, you make some kind of excuse like, I got to poop real bad, and you got to bail. You go and watch the football game. All right? And this game is kind of new to this day. I think for years it was always on Friday night. Yeah. I always loved watching the Egg Bowl. This is going to be a hell of a game. I expect nothing short of a bloodbath. Ole Miss is going to just destroy them. Mm-hmm. But you're always going to be in for a treat, like some guy doing like the dog pee in the end zone, costing the game. It's going to be great. Yeah. Can't wait to watch this game. 7:30 at night. Cowbells.
More
cowbells on Thanksgiving. It's going to be awesome. Put the kids to bed. Watch the game. Have a couple of beers on ice when you get home from your family's house. Maybe get a little plate of leftovers for halftime.
I thought you were supposed to say something else. But anyway, moving right along. TCU at Oklahoma Friday. Noon or $41 for a ticket to this game. How about that?
See, they're gonna make me watch. They're gonna make me choose. Well, I'll probably have all 3 games on. Yeah. But I got to choose between TCU, Oklahoma, Iowa, Nebraska, and Miami, Boston College. Yeah. And I don't want to make that decision because I don't want to watch any of them. But I'll probably watch all 3. Mm-hmm.
You got Missouri taking on Arkansas at 4 o'clock.
That'd be a decent game. I want to see Missouri close this season out. They're 9-2. Mm-hmm. I want to see them go 10-2, and they're going to get I don't think they're going to get a New Year's 6 bowl game, but I think they're going to play on New Year's Day. They'll probably get like this. I don't care what they call it now. It's the Citrus Bowl. Okay. Orlando, Florida. They'll probably get that game. Yeah. Maybe because even though they're in the SEC East, maybe because it's Missouri, they might throw them in the Cotton. Mm-hmm. But I think LSU's probably not LSU. It's gonna be Ole Miss most likely going to the Cotton, and they'll throw probably Missouri in the Citrus.
So you got Texas Tech against Texas, which is a game to watch.
Friday night at 7:30.
Ooh, it's gonna be an interesting game. I think Texas Tech's got a shot here.
I do too, but you check that out. I mean, Penn State, Michigan State, whatever. Oregon State, 8:30 Friday night.
Right?
I thought the Civil War was Washington. It might be. I don't know. I think it's Washington State.
Well, what's that one called?
I have no idea.
Anyway.
But that'd be a great game. Put the beer on ice. Yep. Friday night, right?
6 versus number 11. Well, I don't think they're 11 anymore. But
maybe come over the house, watch the game, have a few beers. Maybe if the wife agrees, let me have people over. I'm on the shit list right now.
Whatever. But the game that will determine a playoff spot, Ohio State, Michigan, assuming the winner of this game wins the Big Ten.
I think you can guarantee that. This is a de facto semifinal playoff game.
Yeah. $466.
Quarterfinal. Ohio State at Michigan.
Carry on.
It's in the big house. I'm going to go on a prediction and say Ohio State wins this game. I think Michigan's the overall better team. Mm-hmm. Overall, I think Ryan Day's a giant baby. Without Harbaugh, I don't think it makes a huge difference, but I think they've been beaten twice. And one of those years, I think they made the playoffs still. So it really doesn't matter. They're number 2.
Yeah.
I still think the losers is out, completely out. I think too many teams are in contention. I think Ohio State's going to take them this year. I really do.
We got Colorado, Utah at 3:00. Yeah.
Go Utah. Man, what happened to Colorado? Everyone's on them. They look decent, and they just went off the rails, and it's gotten ugly. They were games I penciled in as wins, and they lost them.
Well, I just think it's just a matter of just the season's long, attrition.
Yeah.
They don't have the personnel. They don't have the offensive and defensive line to sustain and just buy them time. And quarterbacks getting beat up. Your skill positions on the outside are beat up. You don't really have much running game.
Nope.
It just kind of adds up. You got Arizona State at 3:30. Alabama, Auburn at 3:30 as well.
Yep. The Iron Bowl.
You'd kind of hope after that showing last week that some way, somehow, Auburn actually mounts a fight.
Yeah.
And they've done it before.
There's Civil War at 4:00. Washington State at Washington. Huge win last night for Washington, or this week for Washington State over Colorado. They look good doing it, but we just mentioned Colorado's not that great.
Yeah.
Florida State at Florida, 7 p.m. I want to see how. I'm not going to say, they played South Alabama. I want, this is a rivalry game.
Yeah.
Despite how bad Florida's looked, they looked great yesterday. Do they come out ready to play in this game? Do they have fight in them? I want to see how Florida State's new quarterback fares against this team. Florida's not great. They don't have very many dudes on defense, but I just want to see how poised this kid is, because they're going to need him to look good in this game and look good in the ACC championship game. I still think they're going to win out, but I want to see how he looks before I'm going to basically write them off for the playoffs.
Georgia Tech at 7:30.
Clean old-fashioned hate, 7:30. First time since 2009 that this is not a noon kickoff. Yes, Georgia Tech has been that bad that long. They're still not great.
That was a Joe Cox game, wasn't it?
Yes, it was Joe Cox game. They wouldn't let him throw the football.
And we won.
Caleb King, and then the other guy they had running the football, I think it was Washawn Ely. Both went over 100 in that game. And Georgia was the underdog in that game. And they ended up pulling up the upset.
Then Calvin Johnson was in that game, wasn't
No, he had already been gone.
Okay.
But $107. I've always wanted to go to this game. From where we live, it's not a far drive to Atlanta. But it looks like I'm going to be on house arrest. So I'm not going to be able to go to this game. So me going to football games this year, it's over. The 2023 season for me, going and being in attendance is over.
Well, it typically means my 2023 season is probably over.
Probably, yeah.
All right, Clemson, South Carolina, 7:30.
That's another rivalry game. Look what South Carolina did to them last year. Clemson will be very angry and ready for revenge. I think they're going to get it.
Yep, and the last game of the regular season will be Colorado State at Hawaii.
11 p.m. kickoff.
For $20, for $20, who knows?
At Hawaii. Seeing a football game, that'd be fun. Cool. Hawaii's warm. Get a couple of cocktails in you before you go to the game.
Wear your little Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, with a Hawaiian shirt. After the game, you go to the beach.
Yeah. Well, it'd be dark by then, but anyway. That concludes Week 12.
Yeah, great week. One more left, and I think most everything's kind of set with just a handful of things. We still have to see. The ACC is set. The SEC is set. Pac-12, pretty much. Big 12, no. Big 10, it's gonna basically get set. We already know it's Iowa from the West. We're gonna see who it is. Most of the conference championship games are set. At least one side pretty much is set for everything. We'll see what happens the rest of the way. But looking forward to the last week of the season. Crazy things always happen last week of the season. It's gonna be great.
Seven or 8 teams still alive in the playoffs, so it's gonna shake out one way or the other. Just hopefully your team's only.
And last year, a team lost. USC lost. Was it? No, it wasn't last week. I think it was championship weekend. A team lost to let Ohio State get in. You've got Florida State, Washington, Oregon, and Texas. Those are the 4 teams to watch. It really doesn't matter. If Washington wins, they're in. If Oregon wins, I think they're in. You got to basically watch those 4 teams closely, because if those teams, if some of those teams lose, I think that the loser of the Michigan Ohio State game gets in. But if those teams win, that loser's out.
Yeah.
So that's what to watch.
Yeah. Well, we'll see you guys next week.
Have a good one.